Hello, welcome to Teacher Jeff 40K. I thought I would do a true beginners video today. Someone pointed me to a box set that actually doesn't seem to be available in Canada right now. Maybe it's new. It's called Battle for Vedros. But I thought I would take the opportunity to look over the two current box sets available for beginners. Those box sets are No Fear and Dark Imperium. So there are two box sets you can get if you're just starting into the hobby. Both of these sets are very similar. There are some differences between the two, most notably cost and what you get inside the box. But both of them do have some similarities. You get two armies in each one, so they both kind of encourage a couple of friends to get together, buy the box together, and be able to each have a force to start with. So both boxes, No Fear and Dark Imperium, have the same armies. An army of Space Marines and an army of Death Guard, which are Chaos Plague Marines. Both armies are pretty good. They're pretty good starting points. They're both good armies to start with if you feel like it. But overall, I would say that both of these box sets aren't quite worth it. They have a few redeeming qualities, and I'm not saying they're totally bad. And if you want to start there, by all means, go ahead. It wouldn't be an awful thing to do. Personally, I would start somewhere else, and I'll tell you why. So firstly, I'll describe what you get in each of those boxes. I mean, it's very transparent. You can go on to the Games Workshop website and you can look at everything that is included inside of the box. That being said, to a beginner's eyes, you don't really know what you need to start playing the game yet. So it can be a little overwhelming because there's a lot you do need. And most of it is included in these box sets, but not all of it. Of course, there's always room for expansion in this hobby as you buy new units for your army and you decide how you want to make your army. And that, I think, is why they created the box sets, so that it's, everything's in one box, it's not as overwhelming. But in that way, they kind of cut out some of the key ingredients to the game that make it necessary to expand later on should you want to. So first off, the first box set that came out is the larger one called Dark Imperium. Like I said, you get two armies in there, the Space Marines and the Death Guard. Now, if you've even heard of Warhammer 40K before and you've never played, you've probably heard of the Space Marines. They are sort of the poster for Games Workshop. And literally, as well as figuratively, literally you will see posters of a Space Marine in front of most shops that will sell Games Workshop or 40K products. You will see a giant Space Marine standing there. Usually he's in blue. So anyhow, the two armies are pretty good. In Dark Imperium, the box set, you do get a lot of miniatures. Now, one of the pros about buying this box is you do end up saving quite a bit of cash on the miniatures inside. You do get a bargain there. You get a lot of stuff. So for the Space Marines, you get two squads of sort of your basic troopers. You get a squad of faster guys. You get a squad of guys with, more intense weapons that deal more damage and are far more frightening. And you get a big, leadership group, I think, of 4 characters. So it's a lot to take in. And they all have their own rules and abilities, so it can be kind of daunting. But like I said, you do get a lot of miniatures. And that is only for the Space Marine side. The same thing goes for the Death Guard side as well, the Chaos guys. You get a whole bunch of miniatures, a bunch of zombie-like characters that are very weak, but you get a bunch of them. So their strength is numbers. And then you get the stronger Plague Marines, which are kind of just like Space Marines, only they're really diseased and, tougher to kill. And then, of course, some leadership characters as well, and a small vehicle, which is actually really good. I will say that. The vehicle they give you, the bloat drone, there's this like floating drone thing. That thing's really good, actually. Now, all that being said, it's a good deal for all the miniatures inside. The only problems I see with it is, one, for a couple of true beginners, it's a lot of miniatures to throw at you right away to start building. It's like, let's see, for the Space Marines, that would be like 20 miniatures to build, and I think it might be more for the Death Guard. I'm not sure. More or right around there. That's a lot of stuff to start with. A lot. But also, because you are getting so many miniatures of either side, it's a massive investment into an army you may not want to play later on. So you may buy this box set with your friend, and you guys build up some of the miniatures and play, and you realize, hey, I don't like Space Marines, or I don't like Death Guard. It can go either way. So that, for those reasons, I wouldn't say it's the greatest place to start. They do give you a full rule book, which is something you will need for later, which is great. It's a big hardcover rule book. They give you some basic rules for each army. So the way it works with 40K is you have your general rule book, and then you have rule books for each army like this. So I've got my Space Marine book, and this is for Space Marines only. So it's special rules just for that army. And each army has one of those books. It's called a codex. Now, in the box set, they don't give you a codex. They give you kind of a booklet with only the rules specifically for the models you get, which is in its own way good, because it doesn't overwhelm you with a bunch of rules. It's like, these are the models you have. Here's what they do. So that's kind of good. But at the same time, again, if you do decide to continue with one of these armies, you will need to get more stuff. And that included, they don't give you paints or glue or paintbrushes or clippers or knives or any of the stuff you will need for modeling and painting any of these miniatures. So while it seems like a great place to start, it's not a great place to start. It's a lot, and it's not even some of the most crucial things, like building materials, like being able to actually build the stuff that's inside the box. Now, both a pro and a con of the set is when you get the miniatures inside, they are simpler versions of the miniatures you can buy in individual boxes later. This is good, one, because, again, you're not as overwhelmed with possibilities and things to build, but at the same time, you're not getting the options and you're not getting to choose certain things for your models. So I would I would say Dark Imperium, maybe not. And actually, the same thing goes for the No Fear set, although if I had to choose one of the two, I would pick the No Fear set. One, it's cheaper. So I'm thinking in Canadian dollars right now. I'm just in Canada. So Dark Imperium is $190, and that's $190. And the No Fear box set is $100. So I imagine if you're in the US, it's probably like, I don't know, $170 or something for Dark Imperium, and then maybe like $80 for No Fear, which is not bad. So in the No Fear box set, you get the same two armies, the Space Marines and the Plague Marines, or Death Guard. You just get fewer models. So I would argue that that's actually a better place, sort of because of what I said before. One, you're not overly investing in one army, so you just kind of feel trapped, or that you've invested all this time. So it's a little better, and you're not having all these miniatures thrown at you right away. It's fewer, so it's a little less daunting right away to have to say, like, okay, you need to build this squad and this squad and this squad and this squad. But the same sort of things apply. They don't give you any of the pieces you would get in the regular kits, so you don't really have a lot of options when building your miniatures. And again, you are, even though it's fewer models and the price tag is lower, you are sort of pigeonholed into taking one of the two armies they provide you, when there are a lot of armies to choose from in 40K. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of a number, but I'd say probably around 20 to 25 different armies to choose from. They've started expanding in 8th edition. They've made specific armies that were once, just part of one army. So Death Guard, for example, is one of them. It used to be part of a larger army called Chaos Space Marines, and now they have their own book. They have their own codex, their own army, their own rules, everything. So lots of armies to choose from. And that's kind of one of the best things about this hobby, is that you get to choose your army, and you get to choose the stuff that you want to make and build. And starter sets may be a great way to save money or start into the hobby, but it kind of pigeonholes you into one slot. And I feel as though some players, like if I started and I, for example, chose the Space Marines, and I built them, I would feel as though I had to continue with Space Marines just because I've already invested time and money into building other Space Marines. So, I would argue both of these box sets would probably be a pass, although the No Fear set, the smaller box, I would argue is probably better just because it's a reduced cost and you're not getting, overwhelmed with too many models. That being said, the No Fear set does not come with the core rulebook that you need. It comes with some core rules, which are very cool. Although, for new players, I will say this, there is a set of core rules. I think it's a 6-page PDF that is available for free on the Games Workshop website. So it's a great starting point to look at the basic rules that won't overwhelm you. Because I think the main rule book is like 200 pages. It's not all rules, don't worry. There's a bunch of lore and background and stuff about, the world you're sinking your teeth into. But it can be, like a lot of the other things I've mentioned, it can be daunting because there's a lot. So I would firstly recommend, one, get that PDF. Just go onto the Games Workshop website. It's free. Check it out. See what's going on with the core rules. It'll cost you nothing. That's why I recommend it right away. It's free. And number two, how I would recommend getting started, as opposed to these two box sets, each army has something called a Getting Started box. And I would recommend these. One, because you can choose it for each army. And two, because it doesn't require you to get miniatures from two armies right away. And it also, it gives you sort of a taste of what each army looks like. You're not necessarily introduced to this new game by two armies. You're introduced to this new game by something maybe you've selected, something you think is cool looking or, interesting or what have you. So each army, you can find something called a Getting Started box. So I'd say either go online, check it out, go to a gaming store, have a look there. Those are usually a pretty solid bargain too. So again, in Canada, they're $100, and you get sort of a starting army. And in the US, I imagine they're a couple bucks less, and it's probably half that in British pounds. That's just kind of the quick conversion. So it's probably about 50 pounds, I'm guessing. Just because the Canadian dollar's weak as shit. But anyhow, that's another discussion. But yeah, the Getting Started boxes are quite good. I've looked into them myself, not because I want to start a new army, but because I want to reinforce a couple of the armies I already have. They have good units in there, and it is, like I said, a bargain. So you will get usually 3 or 4 units in a getting started box, and the box will be considerably cheaper than buying all those units individually. And this is a rare thing for Games Workshop. You will see, because of course they kind of want you to get into the hobby. It's kind of like a drug dealer giving you your first taste for free, and then the rest of it's super expensive. So it's like typically like you might see like deals on Games Workshop, but it's not really a deal. It's like order 3 of these massively expensive tanks and you save $5. So it's really not that much. But these getting started boxes are actually pretty solid. So there's a solid savings, sometimes of up to like $50, and that's on a $100 price tag. So that's quite good. So you can get some pretty cool stuff. You get to choose your army, and I would honestly say, I mean, if you've got a friend who plays, just get them to help you out with that. If you don't, I mean, you can go by any gaming store. They'll probably help you. If you go by a Games Workshop, they will help you. They'll probably try and sell you a lot of stuff. But they will help you with the sort of basic rules, how to get started, what you want, that sort of thing. But I would say, you know, before you go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff, do a little research first. Look into it. And I'm not just talking about the game of 40K, but rather look into the army. How do they play? Do you like the look of them? Is that why? That's not a bad reason to choose an army, by the way. Choose it for whatever reason. Do they look cool? Are they your play style? Like, are they a fast army? I mean, if you don't even know any of that stuff, that's cool too. I mean, I started my first army years ago based on looks alone. I wanted orcs, and I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to paint them blue, and I did, and I had a super amount of fun, because I just sort of started with a bunch of blue orcs, and that was that. But yeah, you can pick anything you want. Another thing, too, I find with the starting boxes is because you get a certain set of miniatures, and because you get no building options, really, it kind of will dissuade a lot of new players to customize their own things, which, in my opinion, anyways, is one of the most fun parts of this hobby. You get to make your army. Not the army they want you to make, not the army that everyone else is making, your army. Do you want one guy to have a chainsaw hand instead of a hand? You can do that. Do you want one guy to be holding 2 pistols like a cowboy? You can do that. And that's the best part of this game, is that you get to make your own army. And with a lot of the box sets, the sort of 2 army box sets, they will basically show you how to paint them in 3 or 4 different ways that are incredibly common. And if that's what you want, if you want a certain color scheme, you saw that color scheme, you want to do it, go for it, man. Do it. Again, it's your army. Choose what you want to do with it. But there is a lot of freedom here, and so that can be kind of frightening at first, but it allows you to pick and choose what you want for your army. So I would say either a start collecting box, or if you've got a friend who plays the hobby, ask them about it. Ask them, like, oh, okay, what should I, not what should I buy, but I want to start, and I want to have a basic force, a basic army to start with. What should I do? Be careful, though, with this when asking other players, because very often you might get advice that seems like good advice and is simply what they would do and what they would buy based on their knowledge of the game. So it's not necessarily like, this is cool, oh, you like this, cool, buy it. It's like, oh, I've seen this unit played before and I don't like it, so never buy it. And that can kind of set some ideas in your head before you've even started playing the game. So I would be wary of that, or just, you know, tell your friend when you ask them, listen, like, I just think this is cool, I want to buy this. Like, how do I start an army? What do I need to start an army? And yeah, you should be able to jump in right away. The getting started boxes, again, they just give you the miniatures, so you will not be getting paints, you will not be getting paint brushes, glue, anything like that. One last thing I would like to talk about is a couple of hobby tips and tricks, mostly for saving money, because it can be a very expensive hobby, as you will find out if you do start. And there are a few things you can do to save a little bit of cash. You don't need every paint in the world. Now, if you want your miniatures to look amazing, that's great. You can buy a crap load of paints. But you don't need every single paint that they sell, because they're expensive. They do have starting paint sets. Those I would recommend, because you get small pots of paint for, I think, like 8 different paints and a paintbrush. That's a good deal, because you can paint up some guys if you decide, you know, fuck it, I don't want to play Warhammer anymore. It's not a massive investment. But individual paints are like $5, and that's just for one color, and then you can do coats and everything like that. And you know, anyhow, so what I would recommend is, in terms of glue, they do have a good glue at Games Workshop. It is very good. It's also very expensive. So I'll tell you that most modeling glues and even crazy glue do the same job for quite a bit cheaper. Just be careful. Make sure you're getting the right kind of glue, that it bonds to whatever you're looking for. I find, like, the regular crazy glue connects anything I want it to connect, including my fingers sometimes when I get careless. But it works. It does the job. And it's significantly cheaper than the Games Workshop glue. So they're always going to recommend that you buy their products, and their products are especially designed for their stuff, but they are exorbitantly expensive. So you don't need to get everything that's from there, if that was a correct sentence. Anyhow, other things, like they also tell you to get their clippers, or their special, like, there's this little, it's not even a knife, it's kind of like this little, like, edging blade or whatever. I've never ever used those, and I have 2 massive armies. So you can use other things. So, like, there's the, like I said, that edging tool. I use an X-Acto knife for the same job. The clippers are for taking the models out of their, they're called sprues, so taking them out of the sort of plastic that you get them in. You can use, if you have any, like, really, really thin clippers already that are like a tool or something like that in your tool case, you can use those. Personally, what I do is I have a mat, and I put down the sprue on the mat, and I use a more heavy-duty X-Acto blade to cut out the different pieces. And I get the same results for a lot cheaper. You can buy a set of X-Acto knives for, like, I don't know, 10 or 15 bucks. And that'll get you a lot too. So that you can go out, just, again, same with the army choosing, ask around, see who's using what, and you'll probably find that a lot of the Citadel miniatures gear is not really necessary for modeling or making anything within the hobby. So overall, I would say the 2 box sets, seems like a long time ago that I spoke about them. The 2 box sets are overall not quite worth getting. In terms of money, they are. You're getting a lot of miniatures for a cheap cost. But in my opinion, it's not a wonderful exposure to the hobby. 1, because you get pigeonholed with 2 armies, and you may not want to use those. 2, I realize I did this. Anyhow, 2, for real this time. They don't give you a lot of things you actually do need, like paints and brushes and stuff like that to start off with. 3, the codexes, so the individual army rule books, also need to be paid for and bought. So there's a lot of stuff not included, and included, it's kind of, I don't know. For me, it's not the best introduction to the hobby. Personally, I would go with a getting started box, or maybe asking around, picking up, 1 or 2 miniatures, getting yourself started. Maybe watch a game. Find a place where they play, or if you have a gaming store nearby, just like go and watch a game. Ask the people playing like what's going on. They'll probably be happy to show you what they're doing and how you can play. And yeah, just ask around. Definitely ask around. See who's doing what. Ask them like, how do I want to start this army, or I'm interested in this. What do I do? What should I look at? That sort of thing. Anyhow, I hope this was helpful and not too confusing for you. And if you do have any questions about starting anything, you can let me know in the comments below, and I'll try to answer them for you. Thanks for watching.